What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot to talk about today. We have 4 areas of interest to pay attention to today. We have an area in the eastern Atlantic in the main development region that is rapidly seeing the chances of development increase. We're also paying attention to Invest 96L, and we're actually going to do a deep dive and a deep analysis on that one because I personally believe the NHC is sleeping on this one, and I think that the data already that we're seeing already has this as a tropical storm or tropical cyclone of some sort. And then you have this area of interest over here in the Gulf of Mexico. That's going to be our main focus in today's video because this poses the biggest threat for potentially tens of millions of people. So let's go ahead and dive right into this right here. We're going to go ahead and start with Invest 96L over here. An area of low pressure located about 700 miles southeast of Bermuda continues to produce an area of a cluster of showers and thunderstorms northeast of its center. However, the low is embedded in a very dry environment. Therefore, significant development is not expected while it moves generally northward at 5 to 10 miles per hour over the central subtropical Atlantic. They have this at 10% probability in the next 48 hours and 7 days. I'm going to let you know right now, I do not buy this for 1 second right here, and this is why. We saw ASCAT come out right here. We got an ASCAT hit on Invest 96L, and this is from Alex Borham right here. It's a closed low. We have a closed low right here. It's slightly elongated, but we have a closed low, and they're finding gale force winds in this system right here. So ultimately, what we're looking at, yes, you do have convection to the northeast of it right here, but you have a closed low according to ASCAT, according to other sources that we're looking at, and we're looking at gale force winds right here. So in my opinion, and the opinion of many others in the weather community, this is already a tropical cyclone, and the NHC is sleeping on this. Now, I don't want to take away anything from the NHC. I want to go, oh, you shouldn't trust the NHC or anything like that. They're being wrong about this. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that this looks less like an invest and more like a tropical cyclone, and that's just my opinion. The NHC has the final call with this, but in my opinion, I think the NHC needs to designate this as a tropical depression based on all the data and all the information that we are getting as of today. We'll have to see if they do that or not, but regardless of that, that's kind of my rant bit today, for today, at least until towards the end of the video. And then we can talk more about that over there. Next thing we're paying attention to is this area of interest that still has a 60% probability of development in the next 7 days in the northwestern Caribbean Sea and Gulf of Mexico. They shifted the cone a bit further to the east, and now it looks like a potential eastern Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida panhandle scenario is very plausible at this current point, similar to Hurricane Michael back in 2018. A broad area of low pressure is likely to form by the early to middle part of next week over the northwestern Caribbean Sea and adjacent portions of Central America. Thereafter, gradual development of the system is possible, and a tropical depression could form as the system moves slowly northward across the northwestern Caribbean Sea and Gulf of Mexico through the end of next week. Regardless of development, this system is expected to produce heavy rains over portions of Central America during the next several days, 60% in the next 7 days, 0 in the next 48 hours. The 0% in the next 48 hours isn't that surprising to me just yet. I don't see them marking this as an X until tonight or even tomorrow morning, and then things are going to go off from there. But this area of interest right here is what's been pretty interesting. It's been kind of a dark horse situation right here in the eastern and central tropical Atlantic. A tropical wave is expected to move westward from the coast of Africa Sunday or Monday. Gradual development is possible thereafter, and a tropical depression could form next week while the waves move westward across the eastern and central tropical Atlantic. We're at a 40% probability of development already, and this wasn't in yesterday's video either. This is where we were at in yesterday's video. They tagged this last night. They tagged this at 1 a.m. Last night. Then it went up to 30%, and now we're at 40% right here. And we just have the remnants of Gordon over here. They're going to get removed at 7 p.m., 8 p.m. Eastern over here. So that's what we're looking at right there. But they tagged this last night, and chances have already doubled in the last 12 hours. So we're going to have to see if that continues to trend up. And if it does, that's going to be a situation to watch, because that could be a very big ace maker, and that could be a very powerful and very large system that we are paying attention to. So that's what we're paying attention to and taking a look at right here. Let's go ahead and go to satellite imagery. I want to briefly talk about Invest 96L over here, just to kind of give you some context and just to kind of talk a little bit about this, because the satellite presentation on this right here is very interesting, and it's actually pretty well organized, I will say. The thing I find interesting about this is you see this with all the ASCAT data, and they're finding gale force winds in there. I hope the NHC takes a look at that. I hope they do some analysis on that, and I hope they come to a conclusion shortly after this video is posted, because I would really like to see what they're thinking about this. I want to see what their initial thinking is. And I want to see if they're going to designate this as a tropical depression or tropical cyclone or tropical storm or not. Because what we're seeing right here is essentially, to put it in the best possible terms, what we're seeing is a huge burst of convection. And not only is it just popcorn convection, it's sustaining right here. It's pretty much sustaining convection, and that's what you need for tropical cyclone development. I don't understand why this is a 10 and 10. I was talking to my guys at Storms United. They said at the very least it should be a 40% probability of development, if not designate a tropical cyclone on the upper end of things. Now, granted, I'm not advocating for the NHC to do that. What I'm simply advocating for them to do is watch this system. I want them to investigate this, look at all the evidence and all the data that they're looking at, and then come to a conclusion, and not just put a 10-10 on this and call it a day. Because I think that they're personally sleeping on this. In fact, Sammy Traup agrees with me right here. Not the first time NHC is sleeping. And then you had Alex Borum over here show the ASCAT data right here. So that's just stuff you're going to want to pay attention to. Now let's go ahead and go to the main event for this situation. We have this area in the Western Atlantic Ocean. You're seeing a broad area of convection firing off. Yes, you have seen some stuff dying off on the northern side of it and on the western side of it, but you're seeing that convection continuing to sustain on the eastern side of it, which that's pretty interesting. That's the kind of stuff you want to look for if you're wanting to see if this is going to develop or not. Now that you're starting to see that, and this convection is starting to develop, and this convection is starting to sustain itself, not fully, but partially, that's a step up, and it's not that popcorn kind of convection we've been seeing the last few days, where you see a bunch of convection, then it calms down, bunch of convection, calms down, bunch of convection, calms down. What you're seeing now is, yes, you're seeing a bunch of convection right here, and you'd argue some of it is a little popcorning right there, but this part of it right here has been sustaining itself pretty well, and it's continuing to hold its own, and it's continuing to really ramp up and continuing to really show its force and show off with the convection right here. And some models have been having a hard time initializing this, and we'll get to that in a little bit. And we'll actually show some of the 12Z runs before we run into the conditions this time. I normally save the models for last, but the reason I'm going to do that this time is for a reason I'm going to explain in just a minute. But ultimately, you're seeing that convection really organized. You're seeing some more convection over here. I'm also noticing some outflow really starting to get its act together as well. That's another sign you need for a tropical development right there. And personally, I think they're going to go with a 70% probability either at 8 p.m. or 2 a.m. based on our latest findings right here, and based on the fact that we're seeing a bunch of this stuff going on. Let's go ahead and briefly show you the Eastern Atlantic, just to kind of show you that where that area of interest is going to be at 40%. There's the wave, and I believe this is the wave in question, or the wave behind it is in question right here. But regardless of that, you're seeing a tropical wave, a relatively powerful one, coming off the coast of Africa, and then you're going to have this system really organize and potentially develop. And I want to take a look at the conditions and kind of see how plausible that is, and if this is going to stop it or anything like that. I want to check water vapor very quickly. At least in the eastern main development region, you're not going to see much dry air really hinder its development. Yeah, you're going to see a little bit over here in the central and maybe even western part of the MDR, but ultimately I'm not really seeing that kind of X factor that would kind of choke it out like I would with other systems. Now, in terms of the Gulf of Mexico and Caribbean system, you are seeing some dry air in the Gulf of Mexico, but you're seeing a little bit more moisture in the upper levels, especially in the northern half of the Gulf of Mexico. You weren't seeing that yesterday. And you're also seeing a lot more moist air in the Caribbean Sea and in the extreme part of the southern Gulf of Mexico over here. And you're also seeing the increasing MJO effects starting to kick in the next couple of days. So that's definitely going to help give it the kick it needs to really blow up in convection and really organize and develop. So that's what we're taking a look at with that. Let's go ahead and show you some model runs right here. I want to go ahead and show you the 12Z runs because I want to kind of emphasize something that I've been paying attention to with some of these runs. Here's the 12Z GFS right here. The 12Z GFS has the system organizing and developing. Starts off pretty broad initially, tightens up quite a bit. Okay, never mind. This is the 12Z from yesterday. Here's the 12Z for today. Very broad cyclone and remains pretty broad, and then it makes landfall as a 988 millibar pressure, maybe minimal hurricane or so, which I found kind of interesting. I took a look at that. And I took a look at the initialization on that, and I'm not the first one to tell you this, but the 12Z runs did not initialize correctly. The GFS run did not initialize correctly. Let me go ahead and show you the CMC. The CMC run did not initialize correctly. I don't think the Icon run... Oh yeah, the Icon run definitely did not initialize correctly right here. So I just wanted to kind of let you guys know this, and I'm going to explain why. And matter of fact, I'm going to show a tweet from Andy Hazelton right here. Shout out to him. Thunderstorms are starting to fire on both sides of Central America as the Central American gyre takes shape. The convection east of Nicaragua/Honduras, interestingly, was not well anticipated by recent global model forecasts. We'll see how this impacts where the system eventually comes together. Here's what we have right here. This is the data that we were getting earlier this morning right here. Here's the burst of convection we were seeing around 9:30 this morning Central Time. And let's go ahead and show you where the initialization was at that current point. 12 hours ahead, you didn't really see that much going on. You didn't see that initialization or any of that expecting to happen right there. And if we go ahead and compare that to what we're seeing now, yeah, you definitely did not. Matter of fact, to be give you a more accurate representation, I'm going to go ahead and pull up, go back to 7 o'clock in the morning Central Time and kind of give you that convection burst right there. This is where... Okay, this is at 30 hours. Let's go ahead and go back to 60 frames just to kind of show you this. This is where we were at 12Z right here. This is at 7:05 a.m., 12:05Z right here. This is where we were expected to initialize right here. You didn't see that much convection going on with the European forecast right here. This is the GFS surveyed right here for 12Z right here. Let's go ahead and show you this right here. Boom. Look at all this convection right here. Also, the 12Z runs did not initialize properly as well. I'm gonna go ahead and scroll back up on the Storms United Discord server. By the way, you should really consider joining that real quickly as I scroll up and find that initialization point as well. There we go. This is where we were at for this 12Z initialization at 8 a.m. You can see this did not initialize correctly, and we can only go an hour just to show you that. Look at this huge burst of convection right here, and this is where we're at right here. Just complete slop in this model run right here. And then you have this pretty nice area of convection, pretty nice area of organization right there. So the point behind all of this that I'm trying to make to you is don't solely rely on the 12Z runs. The reason you should not rely on these runs is because they did not initialize correctly, and we of course need to wait for more information and data. But if you're looking at the 12Z runs and saying, "Oh, it's downtrending," like a good buddy of mine named David is doing, don't use those runs, mainly because they haven't initialized the system correctly. The GFS hasn't done it. It's been very egregious at doing it this morning, to be honest with you. Andy Hazelton pointed that out already. Don't use the Icon. Don't use the CMC. Wait for the 0Z runs so they can initialize correctly. They start initializing at 7 p.m. Central Time. and they should be out by around midnight. I'll definitely take a look at those. If I find something interesting, I'll post it on Twitter. Follow my Twitter, by the way. It's Pat's Path Predictor, and I'll keep you updated over there. But regardless of that, I just wanted to go off on a bit of a tangent right here. It's not really a tangent. It's a very valid point, because I know some people in the weather community are saying, oh, we're downcasting, it's going to be a bust, everything like that. We need more information. The 12Z runs did not initialize correctly. So I wanted to make that point very clear moving on, so that way we can get this business out of the way. Let's go ahead and show you the conditions. We're showing you the conditions last this time, because I wanted to get this rant out of the way. Here's what we have in terms of conditions, because this is the key phrase I said when Hurricane Idalia happened last year. Models are one thing, but conditions and real-time data are a whole other ballpark. You can tell I'm a baseball fan. You see me wear my Cardinals and my Astros hats. But anyway, here's what we have going on with the global sea surface temperatures. Still very warm, still very piping hot. I don't need to really rant about this or anything like that. You've seen plenty of my videos where I do that. I just wanted to emphasize this very quickly. Very warm waters. 30 plus degrees Celsius, 86 plus degree Fahrenheit. Everybody knows that, just like in those Geico commercials. But what you probably didn't know was how much OHC. Just kidding, you also knew that as well, because I keep raving about that for the last few weeks over here. 175 plus OHC over here. Ultimately, we're in a situation where this system, if it organizes and initializes quickly enough, yes, it's going to be broad initially. I'm not dismissing that. I don't think it's going to tighten up overnight or anything like that unless something unexpected happens. Yes, it's going to start off as relatively broad, but I do expect this to tighten as it moves to the Caribbean Sea and the Gulf of Mexico, because you're going to have the trough start to come in, and you're going to have a ridge kind of building up and push the wind shear out of the Gulf of Mexico at an angle that could help enhance the outflow and consolidate the system. Infamous case of that was Hurricane Ian in 2022. Just wanted to highlight that very quickly. And speaking of wind shear, I did find this map kind of interesting right here, and I will show the shear and moisture forecast to kind of emphasize my points as well. But here's the situation that we have right here. There's about 30 knots of wind shear in the Caribbean Sea, which is pretty interesting. It doesn't look like it's going to be hindering the tropical development that much, primarily because this is only temporary, and this is going to be moving out of the Caribbean Sea in the next, I'd say, 48 to 72 hours or so. Don't quote me on that. I'll check the shear and moisture forecast just to verify my suspicions or not. Courtesy of the European run right here, let's go ahead and show you the shear and moisture forecast with that. I'm going to show you both the European and the GFS just to kind of give you some context to the situation. But here's this European shear forecast, expected to start moving out in the next 3 days or so. The Gulf of Mexico gets really quiet in terms of shear as that ridge builds up and pushes all the shear out and into the Midwestern United States over here. You do see a bit of a trough start to develop, and that could definitely help hinder at least some sort of intensification in the northern part of the Gulf of Mexico. But at the angle it's going at and where this system is supposed to go, according to the NHC and a bunch of other model runs, you're going to see a situation where this could help consolidate and enhance the outflow by quite a significant margin. I'll also show you the GFS forecast just for context. And I'm going to show the 0Z because I think it's fair, because I'm using the 0Z European, 0Z GFS will be fair to do as well. Gulf of Mexico really calms down the next 2 days or so as the system starts to organize in the Caribbean Sea, and then you start to see this shear start to build back up, but it's at an angle where it's going to help the system consolidate, grow, breathe, do all the things that it needs to as it approaches land over here. So I thought that was kind of interesting to talk about very quickly, and just kind of stuff to take a look at. Also, I want to take a look at the moisture component to all this from the GFS just to kind of see, yes, you're going to see some dry air in the Gulf, but like I've been telling you, there's a lot of moist air in the Caribbean Sea, and a lot of that air actually gets surges into the Gulf of Mexico, but there is going to be a potential dry air intrusion over here. I want to check the 12Z. I want to check the 12Z run to see how this is doing. Yeah, it definitely is a trend on that, but the 12Z didn't initialize correctly, so I'm just curious to see if it's a one-time thing or not. It's not. So there could be a little bit of dry air on the western side of this as it approaches the Gulf of Mexico. But regardless, this is stuff you're going to want to pay attention to. Models are one thing. Conditions are a whole other ballpark. I want to emphasize this. to close out the video, because the 12Z runs are not initializing correctly. Wait for the 0Z runs, and I'll keep you updated on them here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and close the video out right here. I really hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. It helps us out, helps us get more videos out like these. The goal of this channel, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. Be sure to join the Discord server, Storms United. We're talking about this all morning, all afternoon, and all night. So be sure to join that. The link will be in the end screen. Shout out to Daniel as an official sponsor of the Pat's Path Predictor channel. If you want to do that and help me personally, be sure to join my Patreon. It's the first link in the description down below. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.